Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're diving back into our series dedicated to foods from TV and film, with a shot at the red bean buns from Spirited Away.
Here, I swiped a dumpling for you.
Thank you.
I've got to get out of this place. Someday I'm getting on that train.
Okay, so first off, let's acknowledge that there are just so many foods from Spirited Away and Studio Ghibili in general that are worth making, so be patient and I promise that we'll get to all of these in due time. For now though, let's start off with these red bean steamed buns, which have been incorrectly translated as dumplings here. On closer review though, we can see that not only is the outside made of a yeasted and risen dough, but the inside of the bun also has a reddish-brown paste inside as well. As a side note, I've also seen a few folks refer to this as a giant red bean bun, but if you ask me though, it just sort of looks like a normal-sized red bean bun, although Studio Ghibili is also notorious for messing around with distorted perspectives too though. In any case, a steamed red bean bun comes from Chinese and Japanese cuisine, and most prominently features the use of a red bean paste made of Adzuki beans. Although the red beans themselves don't particularly have a lot of flavor from them, you will almost always come across this paste sweetened with honey and or sugar, giving it more of a jam-like flavor and consistency, and is also what makes these one of my absolute favorite sweet buns from my childhood too. For our version today, we'll be using a pantry-stable canned version of red bean paste, although we will absolutely touch on how to make this stuff from scratch too. As many of you know though, I am always a sucker for shortcuts, and personally for me, I think the best part about this one is that if you use the canned stuff, you can make these buns in maybe 25 minutes of cooking time, which is very cool. Okay, so let's get into it.
Just hear those sleigh bells jingling, ring, ding, dingling too. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you. Outside the snow is falling and friends are
Okay, so diving right in, we're kicking things off with our bun dough, which most prominently is going to rely on the use of heavy cream and dry active yeast. So going into my mixing bowl here first is a single tablespoon of dry active yeast, followed by a quarter cup each of lukewarm water, heavy cream, and white sugar. Then we're mixing this all to combine and letting that yeast proof for 10 minutes until we start seeing some nice bubbles forming, indicating that our yeast is alive and well. Then rounding this out is about 1.5 cups of AP flour that I'm adding a quarter cup at a time while also gradually mixing to combine. As always with dough recipes like this, I want to emphasize the word about. Cup measurements are notoriously inaccurate with dry ingredients like flour, so instead we're paying more close attention to the consistency and texture of our dough as we need. When it's ready, our dough should be cohesive and pulling away from the sides of the bowl, but still also moist and soft as well. Finally, we're adding this to a covered bowl and letting our dough proof in an oven with the oven light on for 1.5 hours. An hour and a half later, our dough should be roughly doubled in size and ready to be kneaded. I'm liberally flouring my work surface here, then breaking out our ounce scale so that we may divide our dough up into 8 equal pieces. Then I'm working my dough into a coin shape with my hands before breaking out my rolling pin and rolling these out about 4 inches in diameter, rotating a quarter turn after each roll. Now, before we start rolling these things out though, I want to first point out that a steamed yeasted dough like this behaves a little bit differently from that of a baked dough, mostly because it's not going to rise quite as much. So, to this end, we're rolling our dough out with a reminder that we're not rolling out dumpling wrappers here, so these should be a little bit thicker, more like a very thick tortilla. Be very careful not to over-roll these though, or else you'll have sad paper-thin buns. Next up is our red bean paste. Now for the determined, you can absolutely make this stuff from scratch. The process is pretty simple: boil some Adzuki beans, add some sugar, and mash it all up. That said though, red bean paste is very readily available in most Asian grocery stores, and in my experience, at best you're going to end up with a red bean paste that tastes exactly the same, but took you an extra 3 hours to make though. So I'll let you all decide for yourselves, but for our version today though, I've got the canned stuff out. Then I'm adding about 1.5 tablespoons to the center of my dough. Then we're folding it all shut with pleats, tearing off the top, flipping it over, and shaping it all one more time until this nice little bow forms. Be patient and don't lose hope if yours comes out a little bit crooked at first, because this takes a little bit of practice to perfect. Finally, now this bit is optional and also not technically featured in the Spirited Away buns, but we're using a little bit of red food dye to dot the top of our buns here like you would do in a restaurant. Traditionally, this is mostly to help indicate what's inside of the buns, red for red bean, yellow for meats, and etc. So you can skip this step if you don't care, or go crazy and paint whatever you want on the top. You know, you do you. Over on the stove, I have a pot of water at a low simmer. Then I'm adding my steam baskets lined with parchment paper, then adding in my red bean buns inside with ample space to rise. Remember that these are still definitely going to expand by at least 30% or so, so don't be lazy. If they don't all fit in your steamer at once, cook in batches. We're letting this steam for 15 minutes, then killing the heat and letting rest for an additional 10 minutes while the steam dissipates. You will find that this bit is very important because if you open the lid of your steamer too early or simply remove the basket from heat immediately, the buns are going to collapse inward and we'll lose all of this glorious puffy goodness that we just created. Once these are cooled down though, I'm removing our parchment paper and we're ready to eat. Okay, so for those keeping track, not including the proof time, this all took me well under 30 minutes to finish up, which is easily my favorite part of this dish today because I love recipes that people are actually gonna try. More importantly though, there's just something about red bean paste that perfectly encapsulates my childhood. When I was a kid, we used to buy these from the bakeries on Clement Street in the SF Richmond district after going to the doctor's office, so these buns just remind me of mid-morning Sundays on Clement Street playing Pokemon and wondering why Chinese people yell so much. Our dough is soft and pillowy, which I think really benefited from the extra fat of our cream today, as opposed to the more commonly used whole milk. Then, as promised, our red bean paste is thick and sweet, making for the perfect late night dessert, breakfast bun, mid-afternoon snack, or really anything in between. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. For those who are new to the channel, this one is part of a larger series that we've been doing that's dedicated to reproducing foods from TV and film, so definitely check out that series next if you haven't yet because there's a lot of these. For the Bay Area locals, the Woo Can Cook Fried Rice Pop-Up is back at 2 Pitchers in Oakland this weekend, so come by and say hi if you can. More about that at woocancook.com/eats. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, be nice interneters, and I'll see you soon. Bye.